How to Solo the Destroyer with Titania in the Summer of Suffering Part 1 event. For those uninitiated, I recently live-streamed myself soloing the SOS Destroyer with various objective champions, and now I live to tell the tale. Here is how I ranked the champs I used for this particular objective. See if you have one of the better options ranked up, and maybe check that tutorial out instead. But if not, let's get on with the show. I will first give a shortened summary of the things you should be aware of in this fight. If you would like a more in-depth explanation, that, and more, is contained in my General Destroyer Guide. I swear these aren't shameless plugs, by the way. I just talk a lot, so I'm trying to section things off and make them as easy to navigate as possible. This is for you, not for me. Please believe me. Anyways, the Destroyer. There are two core pieces of info to absorb. The first is that buffs are not your friend. When you hit him, for each buff you have on you, you will get a portion of the damage reflected at you in the form of an instant rupture. And even if you use a champ without natural buffs in their kit, there are still a couple that will interfere unless you have a buff immune champion entirely. One is your dexterity buff. Not much you can do about that one since you need to dex his hits, but just know that the first hit or two when you punish him after dexing, it will count as a buff towards that damage reflection. The other buff of note is an unblockable buff you'll get from the node. It's like hot potato. There's a timer, and if it expires while you're close to him, he gets the unblockable buff. But if it expires when you're far away from him, you get it instead. You can choose who gets it by deciding whether you get close or far from him when the timer's up. Again, unless using a buff immune champion, you're going to get some damage reflected back at you throughout the fight, but you'll be fine as long as you try not to activate your biggest of boy damage when you have buffs on you. The other core chunk of info is that Destroyer has these charges, and once he gets to 100 of them, he will gain so much power over a very short period of time. There are various things that will give him charges in this fight, such as he'll get 2 whenever you parry, gain a buff, lose your dexterity buff, or, if you're buff immune, when you would have gained a buff. The actual problem though is that he'll get 15 charges each time you do anything other than triggering dexterity on any of his special 1 hits. Yes, even if you avoid the hit due to being out of range. You specifically need to trigger dexterity. He has 3 hits on his special 1, so that's 45 charges if you dex none of them, which clearly is an issue. However, he will lose 1 charge every time you inflict a non-damaging debuff that isn't stun, so parrying won't help you in that endeavor. Additional mechanics of the fight, or things to keep in mind, are the following. You will be rooted during his special 1 animation, but that's actually helpful because it allows you to better stay in range in order to dex his hits. However, again, I would really advise you learn how to dex his special 2, because he doesn't gain any charges from that, other than the couple he'll get from you triggering a dex buff, nor are you rooted for it. It's not hard to do, I promise, and it's certainly worth it rather than trying to dex every single hit of his special 1 every single time. Next up, you cannot intercept him unless you have recently punished his heavy, because he is the Destroyer, and his whole thing is being unstoppable when dashing forward. This time he's stun immune when dashing, by the way, so you can only parry stun him while he's in close range. I know I mentioned that buffs are an issue, but if you're not taking a bunch of damage by messing up and getting clipped, you should have enough health to not worry too much about hitting him when you have a dexterity or unblockable buff active on you. Just be mindful. If you'd rather be safe than sorry, you can also use health boosts so the consequences aren't as severe. And lastly, like I always say, equip your goddamn relics. But some relics give you buffs, so stay tuned and I'll tell you which ones are safe to use for your specific champion. Got it? Okay, cool. Now allow me to explain how to use said specific champion for this fight. It is time for, in my opinion, the #1 fight pisser for the villain objective, Titania. As such, we will be using the LMAO fuck you Tin Man method for this fight. Any relics will work here. So yeah, the aforementioned. To get a little bit more specific, this big lady is buff immune, meaning there is no fear of reflected damage. I should note that despite her buff immunity, Destroyer will still get 2 charges every time she would gain a buff, as that's in his kit. It doesn't matter at all though. I mean really, Titania's entire shtick is that she inflicts a disgusting amount of debuffs and is buff immune. There is nothing else to be said. What do you do here? You fulfill your destiny and you piss all over him. Just use Titania however you want to use her and it'll work. The only thing I'd advise against is trying to be cute and push him to a special 3 while your Haymaker is active, because his special 3 will place a degen on you, and I don't think your indestructible is long enough to outlast the degen's duration. But yeah, other than that, you can do whatever you want. You could focus on baiting special 1 so you lock him in the corner and can heavy counter to your heart's content. You could focus on pushing him to special 2s, or you could do a little bit of both. Either way, the piss shall rain. You will now see me attempting this process, and succeeding, from the faded live stream I did. I was pleasantly surprised to have gotten the solo on my first attempt with an unboosted 7-star rank 2. Enjoy! Each time I get a solo, I'm just keeping it on there. Just so I remember, honestly. And to see how much it took, so I can relatively compare how easy it was. If that makes sense. Not a good idea. Oh, wait. So, wait. He's not gaining charges from her buff immunity, so that node's a little weird. Hold on. Yes, he does. Okay, never mind. And hold block so he doesn't use his special. Never mind. Oh, I was about to intercept there. Wow, Titania is really good for this. So far, I think I've only pushed him to 1 special 2, and he's still at so few charges. Wow, she's great. She seems to be really good for this so far. And I'm not ideal on the rotation of Titania, but I know she does a lot of damage when you do this. Oh, and we're at 0 charges. Hell yeah! Wow, Titania is cool. I'm not the biggest fan of her, but okay. So far, we have a very easy villain objective, I believe. Oh, I thought that it might have triggered her Haymaker if I would use a special. I don't really know why I'm using heavies, but yeah. So using relics while he's unstoppable does not seem to work. And see, I think it's good to be really close to him like this. If you're going to bait special ones, you don't want to dash back like that. Wait, we may be able to get another moment going on. You say, I think that's awesome. People ask me what champs I used for certain content and I can never remember. Yeah, thankfully I do have the stream to help me remember, of course, but I want to make tutorials for this, so making sure I have a somewhat decent memory of how the fights went, with who I used, and also the order of how I used them. Clearly I'm going to get more comfortable with the fight as time goes by, so that will factor into the amount of deaths and stuff. Oh, I almost didn't time that right. I can't believe I actually dexed that. But yeah, so say if I were to try Scorpion way later, after I'm better with the fight. Huh? I used a heavy, but the input didn't trigger. Okay, Titania first attempt solo, that's nuts. Wow. Unboosted, by the way, to those who are just new. Here. Titania. And that's how you solo the Destroyer. I hope this was able to help. Hi there, post-editing Vol. I'm very sorry for the late upload, and I was going to say that I'll be rushing the other ones out, but I think that it is a bit too late for that, and there are many more tutorials to be made, so I think that I'll just leave these villain ones up, and I'll say that anyone can reach out to me if they would like to know how to solo the fights with the following champions: America Chavez, Quicksilver, Sasquatch, Spider-Man 2099, Spider-Ham, Hulk, and Jessica Jones. I soloed with all those, and I know how to do it. Apologies again. I should know better than to make promises like that, and I'll try to implement preventative measures next time so I can keep true to my word. Until you hear from me next, thank you very much for your patience, and I wish you the best of luck in your solos.